Hello and welcome. So, we all know artificial intelligence holds this incredible promise, right? To revolutionize business with pure, data-driven objectivity. But what happens when that exact same technology learns and then turbocharges our own hidden prejudices? Well, in this explainer, we're going to demystify AI bias and give you a really practical framework to build fairer and frankly more effective AI in your organization. Okay, let's get into it.
This quote, wow, this comes from a huge real-world cautionary tale. A few years back, Amazon had to completely scrap an AI hiring tool they were building. Why? Because it taught itself that male candidates were better. It learned this by looking at 10 years of the company's own hiring data, which, was mostly men. So the AI started automatically penalizing resumes that had words like women's, as in captain of the women's chess club. It's a perfect and honestly a startling example of how AI, if you're not careful, can just automate discrimination at a massive scale.
And believe me, Amazon isn't the only one worried about this. That story just puts a spotlight on a massive risk that leaders are taking really seriously. A global survey found that nearly 4 out of 10 executives, 39%, say that AI bias is one of their top risks when they're thinking about bringing AI into their companies. So it's pretty clear this isn't some small technical problem for the IT department. It's a core business challenge.
Okay, so before we can even think about fixing the problem, we've got to understand it. Let's really dig in and diagnose what AI bias actually is and the kind of real-world impact it can have.
So let's get a really clear definition on the table. AI bias isn't just a random mistake or a glitch. It's a systematic pattern. It's when an AI consistently, and that's the key word, consistently gives less favorable results to a specific group of people, whether it's based on gender or race or age, and for no good reason. What it's really doing is taking the prejudices that are already floating around in our society and in our data and just amplifying them. And this is where you see this huge disconnect. The promise of AI is that we can finally make truly objective, data-driven decisions, free from messy human feelings. But the reality? It can be the complete opposite. If we aren't incredibly careful, we end up building systems that just bake our existing human biases into the code, making them even harder to see and even harder to fight.
And make no mistake, this isn't just some abstract ethical debate. This is a massive business risk. We're talking about devastating damage to your reputation, huge legal and financial trouble from discrimination lawsuits, not to mention what it does to employee morale and customer trust. This is a C-suite, board-level concern, plain and simple.
So, how does this even happen? Where does the bias actually come from? Let's trace the origins, follow the breadcrumbs to see how these unfair algorithms get made in the first place. Because understanding the root cause is the only way you're going to find the cure.
Turns out, bias can creep in at a bunch of different stages. First, and most obviously, it starts with the data. If your data reflects historical discrimination, well, guess what the AI is going to learn? Then you've got flawed labeling, where humans marking up the data inject their own subconscious biases. The algorithm itself can be the problem if it's designed to just optimize for pure accuracy without any thought for fairness. And finally, there are human blind spots. If your development teams aren't diverse, they might not even think to look for certain kinds of bias.
Okay, we've laid out the problem, we've looked at the causes. Now for the most important part, what do we do about it? Let's frame these next steps as a practical toolkit. 3 core strategies your organization can start using to build fairer AI like today.
The very first, the most fundamental strategy is all about the data. You absolutely have to treat data like it's the fuel for your AI. If the fuel is dirty, the engine's going to sputter and fail. It's that old saying, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Well, it's biased data in, biased AI out. So, what does this mean in practice? Well, first, you have to use data sets that are diverse and that actually represent the real world your AI is going to operate in. Second, you can actually pre-process your data to try and reduce that bias. You can do things like anonymize sensitive info or rebalance the data to give more weight to underrepresented groups. And finally, and this is so important, you have to audit your historical data. If your past hiring decisions were biased, you can't just feed that history into a model and expect a fair result.
Now, data is the foundation, but it's not the whole story. Our second strategy is all about the technology itself. You have to be intentional about this. You have to build your models and your processes with fairness as a top priority, right up there with accuracy.
Getting to fairness means you have to strike this really critical balance. It's not good enough to just ask your team, how often is the model right? That's just accuracy. You have to ask the fairness question too.
Are the model's mistakes spread out evenly across different groups? Think about it. A model could be 95% accurate overall, but be wrong for one specific demographic half the time. That's not fair. So measuring for fairness, it's totally non-negotiable.
But even with fair data and fair algorithms, technology by itself is never the complete answer. And this brings us to a super important concept. You have to maintain human oversight. For any decision that really matters, you need a human in the loop.
So let's look at what a good workflow actually looks like. The AI doesn't get the final say. It just gives a recommendation or maybe does an initial screening. Then, and this is the key part, a human expert comes in, reviews that output, does a common sense check, and adds all the context the machine can't see. And only then is the final call made, mixing the power of AI with smart human judgment. The AI's job is to augment, not replace.
All right, our final strategy is maybe the most important because it's the glue that holds everything else together. Tech fixes alone are not enough. You have to build an entire organizational culture, a governance structure that puts fairness first in everything you do with AI. This starts at the top, by setting up clear, ethical AI guidelines for everybody. You have to build diverse teams, because people from different walks of life are going to spot biases that others will just miss. You've got to test for fairness just as hard as you test for software bugs. Keep monitoring the models even after they go live, and, critically, demand that your AI systems can be explained. Bias loves to hide in black boxes.
When it's all said and done, it's really important to reframe this whole conversation. This is not just a technical problem that you can throw a few data scientists at. At its very core, this is a human challenge. This is a leadership challenge.
The most important thing to take away from all this is simple. Our technology is a mirror. It reflects the data we give it, the goals we set for it, and the values of the people who are building it. So creating fair AI means we need a deep, active commitment to fairness from the people and the organizations standing behind the code.
And so I'm going to leave you with this final thought. As you go on your AI journey, it's not enough to ask if your AI is smart or if it's efficient. You have to ask the most important question of all: is it fair?